Alrighty, folks, a number that you consistently hear me talk about on the daily financial news will be consumer confidence and consumer sentiment. Both of these numbers have seen some wild variations. We can talk about the survey itself. We can talk about what, if anything, we can learn from them. And also, we shouldn't be remiss as to talk about both consumer confidence and consumer sentiment with actual retail spending, because maybe they're saying the same thing and maybe they are not. We're going to have this conversation with Bo Eckstein. Bo, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, considering I told Mike before that I had put my dog to sleep yesterday. So, it's always, I've talked to a lot of dog owners, and, it's the hardest thing. Dogs are like, I always tell people I cry more for my dog than most relatives, and it's true because they're with you every day, right? And my dog Pepper would be at the front of my office every day, and I'd get up. So, this show's dedicated to Pepper. How about that?
There you go. Dedication to Pepper. I like it. So you wanted to talk about consumer sentiment, consumer confidence. I want to wrinkle in retail sales. What are some things that you've uncovered in your research?
So it looks like the expectations, what it appears to me from my research is that basically consumer confidence is low right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm interested to know, how does that correlate to retail sales, right? Because that would be a leading indicator in my mind that if sales are down, that means people are really buttoning up. And so what I'm seeing in the business ownership space is people are a little bit more conservative now than before, right? And they're taking more time to make moves and so forth. Everybody wants to own a business, but yet people are lacking the confidence to do that. So I'm wondering if this all correlates, or if we're seeing it in retail spending, if it's declined or if it's up. Or I don't really pay attention that much, and I know you do pay attention a lot more than I do.
So I think there's a couple of things going on, and I've been reporting these for the last couple of months in the daily financial news. Consumer confidence and consumer sentiment are both surveys that I think need to have a major revision. Right. We've seen some pretty historic low numbers in consumer confidence and in consumer sentiment, both way below historically recession level. Right. And specifically consumer sentiment is even worse than consumer confidence. Right. It's in the 40s. And what I don't think people realize is the survey has relied on, for decades, telephone calls. So they actually pick up the phone and they call people. Unfortunately, what's transpired over the last decade is more and more people don't have phones. Like in Vegas, I don't have a home phone. You cannot call me. I do not have a home phone. And what that means is the respondents, so the people answering the questions, are starting to skew towards older generation. Right? Because the younger generation don't have phones, so they can't be part of the survey. Also, we have seen a lot of research here recently about political affiliation. And what we are seeing inside the numbers, it's clear as day. You can't argue this. Democrats are more pessimistic than Republicans. They just are, and by a large amount. And what we've seen in consumer sentiment and consumer confidence to date is a predominant amount of Democrats, right? More Democrats answering questions than Republicans. And if you have that whole combination of things, you're going to get a pretty terrible reading. So I have been of the opinion that both consumer sentiment and consumer confidence need to be flushed down the toilet. They are giving, at least in a historical context, they're giving horrible insight. Because these used to be leading indicators to retail sales, to your point. They are not. Why do I say that? Well, consumer sentiment and consumer confidence have been below recession level, below historic norms, and in one case, hitting a decade-long low. And yet retail sales are never been better. In fact, if you listen to earnings reports yesterday, you have beat on revenue, beat on earnings, raise expectations across all kinds of consumer-based economy. In fact, Visa said an unending demand from consumers. So we are clearly seeing a bifurcation of what people think or feel in what they are doing. There's a thing in economics that says something like this: I think the economy in general is terrible, but I'm doing great. Right? So my neighbors are doing terrible, but I'm doing great. The state is doing terrible, but I'm doing great. So you keep spending even though you think the world is terrible. So what I would tell most people is, I think the surveys suck. They're broken. They're outdated. They need to be, I think they need to be done, but they just need to be done in a different way. So that's a long rant.
Yeah. So basically, retail sales are up, and we're reading these reports. So a lot of what I feel from the outside looking in is that it's really emotions driven. Like,
Correct.
Like, not that much of the, not much changes, but when emotions change, that's when it really comes in, and it almost forces a recession.
Oh, it absolutely can.
For
Consumers.
There's not really material facts that do it other than the confidence of people. And if they think that they're not, that it's going to get tough for them, then they stop spending, but
Correct.
They're not spending. And then, so it's like it's superficial. And that makes a lot of sense the way you broke that down. So I guess the next question I would have, and I don't know if you have this data, is like, how do we, like, is it, we know savings is lower, right? But
let's talk about that as well.
Credit cards.
Well, let's talk about that. So again, I think we talked about this last week. It might have been the week before, where the savings rate is at a cycle low of 3%, historically running just over 5%. But what we didn't say so clearly, I should have done a better job, is people have more ways to put money to work today. So it's not sitting in a savings account. It could be in a money market. It could be in an ETF. It could be here. It could be there. It could be in a CD. There's lots of ways to go. So instead of talking about a low savings rate, what we could have also said, and I probably should have said, is the net worth of the average American has never been higher. The other thing we could say is asset owners have never been richer, have never been wealthier. So what we're seeing is the K-shaped economy running in full tilt. Is if you have done the work and you own assets, you are enjoying life. And if you are a renter and, living paycheck to paycheck, you're sucking wind. That's also true.
Interesting. And then, it also, the Federal Reserve did a study in 2025, and, I got to cite this because I'm citing it right now, but other resources might be a little bit different statistics. But this Federal Reserve study said that, which I was pretty shocked. It said survey of household economics found 49% of adults 18 to 29 still live with their parents. And I guess a lot of them are 18, 19, 20. That makes sense. But I didn't realize it was going to be that high of a number.
Yeah. So, when you read stats like that, you always have to ask compared to what. So I have seen that survey. And if I remember correctly, if we go back to 1999, so, the turn of the century, I think the number was something like 38 or 39%. So the delta is pretty large. That's a 10% jump in a decade. So it's definitely something worth looking at. I suspect a lot of it has to do with student debt. Anytime the government gets involved in something, think about it: healthcare, student loans. It just gets wonky and broken. I think we have done a disservice to an entire generation pushing college on people who maybe shouldn't have done it, and they should have done something else. And I think what we have is we have a dilemma of college debt. It can't be discharged in bankruptcy. And I think a lot of that growth, that 10% pop, from 2 decades ago, 2.5 decades, is because of student debt, at least a lot of it.
So that brings me up to a point that, if you're watching this and you're living at home and you're thinking, oh, I want to get out of home, but maybe the best bet for you is to own a business instead of buying a house first. We talked about, I think, an episode or two ago about I believe, I think owning a home makes sense for investment purposes, versus some other people don't necessarily agree with that. But I would say if you're sitting at home and you can live there for a couple of years, and you can then it enables you to get into a business. I would say owning a business would be a top priority. I'd rather stay at home with mom and dad and get that cash flow going first. And so I do think, like, if you're fortunate enough to have parents that are fine with you living there,
yeah,
and you're like, look, let me not go to college and rack up 200 grand in student debt. Let me start a business and learn a trade or whatever that is. I think that is a wise move versus, and then your second investment could be that duplex where you owner occupy one side and you rent out the other side. You don't have to get fancy with it, right? You just have to lay out a basic plan. So really my take on this all today so far is it's so emotions driven. And a lot of times we have to peel back and look at the actual, like, these data stats can throw you for a loop. Like even me right now, sometimes I feel like, how is the economy, right? Like, and yeah, like I always say, I'm doing good, right? Like, but I also say, like, yeah, it's not the best economy. And when people start feeling that way, they stop expanding. And I think the smart people are always expanding, and they're always buying assets, because we know that's what the really wealthy do. And that's why they never get hurt in economic swings. They actually gain traction. I think we all have to understand that concept.
Well, no, I think the kind of closing point about all of this to me is I think if I pulled up your Instagram feed, this for somebody watching this, I could tell if you're an opportunist or you're a doomer. I think our echo chamber is causing a lot of this, because it's, again, doom sells, right? We have doomers today like Nick Gurley from Reventure Consulting, Adam Taggart from Wealthion, even Travis from Real Estate Mindless, buying homes today because they've been peddling fear and doom. They are monetizing stupidity. But if you live in that world and you're just a click away from monetizing stupidity, you're helping these content creators get rich. And doom and fear sells a lot more than, hey, buckle up your bootstraps, sacrifice for 10 years, buy assets, yada, yada, yada. It's a lot easier to say the economy is scary, we're heading to a recession, put your head in the ground, trust me, here's a warm chocolate chip cookie, I'll tell you when the world's okay. And these doomers are just monetizing stupidity. So, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the insight. I feel like it gave me a different perspective, which is always good, right? That's why I come here, and I like to ask you questions sometimes, because I feel like you give some good sound advice. And you're right. What's the book, The Tortoise and the Hare, right?
Yep.
And exactly. So just be the new sexy is being the tortoise, right? The new sexy is being the tortoise and paying your dues, and you keep going. You keep going every day, and that's how I live my life, man. And I hope everybody out there just realizes, like, it's not a get rich quick. It's get rich over time, and you got to pay your dues. And if you can do that, and it's just like investing your money, you can't, like, it's overwhelming to think, how do I save X amount of dollars? But if you break it down and look at the compound effect, you can do it over a long period. That's why the people that start in their 20s, the smart ones that go, oh, okay, I'm just going to allocate X amount, and they get that, versus the person that's watching this right now that's 55 years old, that's got 20 grand to their name, and they're like, well, it's too old, too late, which it's not, but the best time is now. So
if somebody wanted to reach out to you, get something started, what do they do?
onerentalmeeting.com. Just book a call and let's go from there.
All right. Shout out, Pepper. This episode was dedicated to you. Thank you so much, Bo.
Thank you.